Welcome to another community chat. This is the 2021 Candidates Conversations. My name is Kevin Tocci, and the idea of these programs is to better inform you, the viewer, the voter in the town of Abington, about the candidates who are running for either the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Health. Right now, we are going to have a conversation with Chris Schultz. Chris is a member of the Board of Health. He's actually the chairman, and we're going to chat with him. Chris, welcome to the conversation, sir.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. It's so nice to be in person and not on Zoom for once.
Yes, but we're socially distancing.
Yes, we are.
Yes. For the folks at home who are watching, maybe they're watching on YouTube, but don't follow local politics closely, tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe some other boards and committees that you may or may have not have served on during your time here as a resident.
Well, let's see. I've been on the Board of Health now for 3 years. It's a 3-year term, which is up. Prior to that, I wasn't involved in any town government. It was one of those occasions where there was an open seat, nobody was running for it, and I felt like the Board of Health is important enough that it should be fully staffed. So I ran a write-in campaign. Since I've been on the Board of Health, I also was appointed to the Ames-Knoll Advisory Committee. We're working with the DCR to come up with a bulleted action item list for improvements up at Ames-Knoll, which is an underutilized resource for our town in Brockton. And otherwise in town, I'm a Scoutmaster of the Boy Scout Troop 41 for the last 10 years. And those things keep me busy.
So what are some of the things that are health-related items that the Board of Health manages or resides over that maybe the regular person wouldn't understand? Like, oh, what does the Board of Health do? Something like that.
Yeah, it's funny. So there's a lot of confusion about exactly what is under the purview of the Board of Health. So we are a regulatory board, and the main job of the Board of Health is to enforce the regulations that the state hands down. We have a health department, which is actually, that's run by our health director, Marty Golightly, and he answers to the town manager. So that is a separate entity from the health board. We don't do the inspections, we don't do the actual boots on the ground going and enforcing. We just interpret the regulations. And like, for example, when the flavored tobacco ban was passed, so it's the state passed that, and then it's up to the local boards to write their own regulations and enforce it. We have to do at least what the state orders, and then we could have put additional restrictions in place if we decided to, which we did not, for the record. But
okay. Well, COVID-19 comes along during your first term, changes all of our lives in so many different ways, including a town like Abington. How did your role and how did your colleagues' roles on the Board of Health change during COVID?
We really became an information source for the town. Our business on the board really sort of dried up. There wasn't a lot for us to do as far as regulations during the pandemic, but we kept meeting and utilizing Abington Cam to be out there so people could know about the numbers, where we were. Then later on, if the past few months as the vaccine has become available. Up until then, I would say the Board of Health probably acted in the dark most of the time. We weren't on anybody's radar, but obviously when you have a public health crisis going on around the world, where it's a little more focused on us. So mostly information is what we've been doing.
What would you say is the health department's role when it comes to restaurants and being up to code? Or is that strictly the health department?
The health department is in charge of the enforcement. Usually the Board of Health gets involved if somebody is fined and they want to dispute the fine, or I guess appeal the fine is a better way of saying it. They would come before the board. In the 3 years that I've been on the board, we've had a few people come to us who were fined for illegal dumping at the compost site. And if they had a sufficient enough reason, we could we could waive that. That's a $1,000 fine, so it's, yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned composting. Does the town have a compost site, and is the compost program as robust as you'd like it to be?
We do have a compost site. We are fortunate enough that not only can we take yard waste and small brush there, we've been able to take mattresses, electronics. For a while, we were able to take clean styrofoam. So there's a lot of stuff you can get rid of there. Going forward, one of the things, there's more to life than the pandemic. So one of the things that I'd like to focus on, if I'm fortunate enough to get another term, is maybe some ways to reduce the cost, what we're throwing out. Our trash contract is up right now, and I'm sure the cost of, I haven't seen the bids, but I'm sure that the cost of waste management is increasing everywhere. So if there was more creative ways for us to reduce our tonnage, what we're actually putting into the trash stream, either through the compost site or other programs, that's something I'd like to explore.
One of the things that I've always kind of been curious about when it comes to the Board of Health is trash and recycling. Is that also another area that the Board of Health is somehow involved in?
We weigh in on it. So as far as the contracts with our waste management service, Marty, our health director, and the health department put the bid out. They do some of the groundwork, and then the negotiations are done with the town manager. So we definitely have a voice in it. The final decision is in ours, but we could work with the health department, certainly on the recycling aspect, to again try to reduce what the town is putting out, because that's what the cost is. It's all based on tonnage, really.
Was it during your term that wasn't there some kind of a strike or something by one of the haulers? What was it like to have to deal with something like that? Did that become an agenda item for the Board of Health to have to deal with?
It did, and again, mostly for an informational purpose. One of the things that I think that we did as a board really successfully during that trash strike is when I was elected initially the first thing I did was create a Facebook page so that the Board of Health was on social media. And that became a real asset for people who were trying to figure out what was going on with the trash, or if their stuff wasn't getting picked up, people would contact us through the Facebook page. So we were, and we could tell people, there's going to be a delay today, or we've been promised trash is going to be picked up in 2 days. So I think we were much more active this time around because of that. So that was good.
How important is that to have a way to interact with residents again? So you created something that wasn't there before. How important do you feel that was, that you developed that and it's a resource that the community members are using?
It really depends on who you ask. There are people who are fans of social media and people who aren't. And it's definitely a double-edged sword. I think it's good insofar as that it's a quick way to get information across to people. If you follow and like the page, it pops up in your feed. So if there's going to be a trash delay, or we've got news about a vaccination, it's a quick way to find out the information. The town website is difficult to navigate, and I'm being generous with that term. You have to click through multiple pages just to get to information. So having a quick resource that's just one click, I think that's helpful for people. The downside, I think, is people tend to complain on social media and expect it to get resolved. I know when people have issues with trash, whenever I interact with them on Facebook, I tell them, please call the health department, because we need to log that. That's how we find the trash provider if they're not doing their job. So while it's good, it gets our attention on social media, there's more that needs to be done. So.
How important is communicating, whether it's you're communicating with residents or communicating effectively with other town officials? Do you feel that that when it comes to communicating, that town officials do it well, and they do it with each other and with the residents?
There's always room for improvement. My scouts can tell you one of my favorite sayings is the Greek philosopher Aristotle once said there's 3 parts to communication. There's a sender, a message, and a receiver. And if one of those parts is missing, you're not communicating. I know we make efforts, and I think things have definitely improved over the last few years, but there's always room for growth. with transparency and communication.
Here we are. We've just crossed over the 1-year threshold of enduring a global pandemic. Do you feel that your board, do you feel that the town has enough resources to endure a second year of COVID and to be able to take care of the residents as needed?
I think we are very fortunate in Abington that we have an incredible health department. Marty and Lindsay are out there every day doing everything that they can to get shots in arms to keep people healthy and informed. So we have the resources to deal with that aspect of it. What I'm concerned about is the ongoing effect on businesses and the mental health of people. I know our kids are going back to school. My kids need to be back in school. So I have concerns, but I think, as far as some other towns, like we have a good health department. I think people are, if we can be giving shots, we'll be giving shots. So we're pretty well positioned. I would hate to think of going through another year, but we do what we got to do.
If you will, speak from a position of pride in seeing what Marty does, what Lindsay does, what Mary does, what your staff does on a regular basis in the health department to help the residents, and knowing that there are other communities that aren't as fortunate.
Yeah, and the level of cooperation we get in this town, I'll shout out to the business owners in Abington too, that from day one, the level of cooperation back and forth is amazing and heartening. And it does. That's one of the reasons why I'm seeking another term. I'm not a politician. I don't have a passion for government, but I really like the team that I'm working with. I think we're doing good things, and it'd be awesome to get to continue to do that.
Just a couple more questions here before we let you go, and we thank you for coming in. Is there an item or an issue or a topic that is in regards to your reelection or the Board of Health that you want to touch upon while you're here?
Like I mentioned, trash and the compost. I think going forward, I'd like to see us working with Angela and the health department a little more on coming up with some creative solutions. The idea has been passed around a few times about like curbside composting, which is something some towns are doing. We have, you can get a composter for home from the health department, but this would be something that gets picked up curbside. What I think is important is, as the costs go up, that we don't put any more burden on residents. We already have a high property tax. There's been 2 overrides in the past to pay for waste management. I don't think people in town should be paying any more, if possible. So that might mean we need to get creative. That's somewhere where we've got room for growth.
Okay. My last question, or one of my last questions, allows you to show your townie side. Favorite restaurant or favorite spot to visit in town? And when I say spot, doesn't have to be an eatery. It could be, going to the Island Grove, or you name it.
It's hard to pick a favorite. I spent a lot of time up at Ames Knoll. I got a kayak at the end of the summer this year, so getting out on the water is a lot of fun. Restaurants, we've been doing a lot of takeout lately. I can tell you my kid's favorite burger on the entire planet is from the Ale House. That's a family favorite. It's a good town. We moved here, it's got to be over 12 years now, probably closer to 15. And I put in roots here. It's a good town, so I enjoy. The commute's not always great leaving here, but we get some nice resources. Island Grove is great too. Hopefully we'll be back there for camping for Founders Day again this year, keeping our fingers crossed.
Okay. Last thing, if there's something you want to say to the residents as to information to contact you if they have questions about your campaign, or just why they should go out and vote for you come Election Day.
So definitely vote. Voting's important. I'm asking for one of your 2 votes for the Board of Health so that I can continue to work with this great team that we've got assembled, and hopefully getting out of this pandemic. Again, looking forward to some other, to being more involved. Like I said, we're a regulatory board. We're sort of limited in what we do, but there's definitely room for growth. trash, mental health is something that I think that we need to be spending some more time looking into, because we've all suffered coming through this pandemic, and hopefully just moving on to something brighter and better.
Indeed. Well, I thank you for coming in. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
As I wish all the candidates the best of luck. And remember, it's up to you to get out and vote. The election is, I believe, April 24th. The polling place has been moved to the Beaverbrook Elementary School. If you're not sure as to dates, times, where you should go, always contact your town government, contact the town clerk's office for more details. But I'm asking you to be informed as to the candidates, and hopefully these conversations have helped you. Until next time, have a good day.